We are travelers, constantly moving forward and looking back. Alone and as one. We have no choice but to try. For our insatiable curiosity. For our fear of what should happen if we don't. You are that explorer now. We will say goodbye, and you will look back one last time. And know that wherever you go, we will be with you. This is Commander Shepard, signing off.
Well folks, we finally reached the end of my video series analyzing the life and death of the development studio that was BioWare Montreal and the ill-fated final product that was Mass Effect Andromeda. With my previous video, I focused mainly on the story failings of Andromeda, primarily from the viewpoint of the characters and the main plot. Now, in this last video, I'm going to wrap up what I believe are the final failings of Mass Effect Andromeda, from a high-level thematic level to the nitty-gritty actual gameplay design of the final game. In doing so, I can finally put this game to rest and hopefully articulate why Andromeda was such a letdown in nearly every department. And I use the word letdown specifically because I still maintain that despite all of its faults, Andromeda is not a bad game. It is, however, an extremely average game, and one that simply does not live up to the mantle that is Mass Effect. With that said, let's get right into it. I want to start this video off by discussing tone, because tone, along with the game's themes, which I'll discuss next, are the two aspects which affect almost every aspect of Mass Effect Andromeda, especially the story, from the main plot to the smallest side quests. But it also affects things like the soundtrack, art design, level design, and even the gameplay itself. To start off, we have to talk about what we mean when we discuss any piece of entertainment's tone. Tone is defined as the general character or attitude of a place, piece of writing, or situation. In other words, what does a specific piece of entertainment feel like? Tone often goes hand in hand with the concept of genre, though the two are distinct. Generally, I think most individuals understand what someone means when they discuss the tone of a story. When we ask what the tone of a game or movie is, we're asking if it's a more lighthearted or serious. Is it scary or is it depressing? Is it optimistic? Is it cynical? For the most part, a story's tone sets the limits with which the story can go. If you're telling a serious story about the Holocaust during World War II, then you aren't going to have a sudden pie-in-the-face gag out of nowhere, especially during a serious emotional scene. Similarly, we don't expect a gratuitous, vicious, and/or violent murder or rape scene in the middle of a lighthearted comedy. Now, this isn't to say that comedy can't happen in a serious movie, or that sudden violence can't happen in a comedy. But for the most part, a story sticks to the tone it initially sets up. A lighthearted tale isn't going to have consistently heavy, depressing, and emotional scenes. Star Wars, a lighthearted space opera, isn't suddenly going to stop everything to explain to the audience how the dilithium crystals react to the antimatter matter injector to power the warp drive so we can have a calm discussion with the Andorians about the benefits of an intergalactic trade agreement. You know, like say Star Trek. If we look at the original Mass Effect trilogy, we can get a sense of both the genre and tone of the series. Yes, the genre is sci-fi, but what type of sci-fi? Gritty noir like Blade Runner? Space fantasy opera like Star Wars, or some slow, talky, techie sci-fi like Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica? Well, it's pretty clear that Mass Effect falls mostly in line with a type of sci-fi similar to Star Trek. It's a serious space drama that attempts to tackle weighty ethical and moral dilemmas, though it does ape Star Wars a little by including this all in a giant space opera adventure. Still, the majority of your time spent in Mass Effect is spent talking to people, negotiating disputes, learning about new technologies, learning about new culture, understanding the theory behind Mass Effect fields. You get the idea. It's a serious story that attempts to tackle serious issues. Yes, there are moments of levity, but the underlying tone is serious and weighty. Hell, Mass Effect 3 gets downright depressing as you walk around the Citadel and hear all the horrible war stories happening around you. With all that in mind, we can now turn to Mass Effect Andromeda. You'd think the series would follow the same tone of the past titles. After all, changing the tone of established series is a risky business, and it could change everything about the series. Well, Andromeda looks like your past Mass Effect titles, but is actually quite different, something the developers weren't afraid to admit prior to the game's release. We were told repeatedly that this tale would be a much more lighthearted one compared to series past.
In this new galaxy, and we wanted the player to feel like they were going to explore. I think people were saying, don't make me feel like if I go off and do this little side quest, I'm letting the universe burn, right? That led us to thinking more about a slightly lighter tone. Another term I like to use is it's a bit more adventurous. I want to just go and explore. I want to see what's over that hill. I want to see if I can take on that large enemy over there. It's just a bit more of that youthful sort of energy. This isn't, a seasoned team that's going out. Yeah, we know we've been there, we've done it. It's more of a, I don't know what that's going to be like. Well, let's go find out.
Now that didn't sound too bad at first, considering the last game involved a galaxy-spanning war against the Reapers, where billions of people were brutally killed every single day. However, once you played Andromeda, you suddenly began to realize just how lighthearted they meant. Andromeda was billed as a lighthearted game. In many ways, the developers and writers perhaps thought the game was something similar to a Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of tone, with a young and inexperienced crew taking on some greater evil whilst cracking jokes and quips the entire time. Yet I suspect many already see the problems with this new tone. First of all, this is a far cry from the more serious military setting of the original trilogy. But the worst part is how the game undermines its own stated tone right from the very start. If you watched my last video, then you notice how I pointed out how this lighthearted tone slaps you right in the face at the start of the game, as the first word out of Ryder's mouth is a joke, totally outside the player's control. So, say goodbye to role-playing as some sort of hard-ass renegade Ryder. The problem is that Andromeda's main story and even character moments don't fit this intended lighter tone that the game wants us to believe it is. We're cracking jokes aplenty right at the start of the game, and then our fucking father dies right before our eyes. This is horrible and tragic, a real serious and emotional moment. Well, does the player take time to think and process this, or even hold a funeral? Like some sort of normal human being? Nope. They're back up and cracking jokes with everyone else in the next scene. Then we're introduced to the main plot. It turns out all of humanity in Andromeda is on the brink of extinction, and Ryder is the last hope to find the Milky Way species a new home. Wait, what? How does this fit a lighthearted adventure tale they want me to have? This is an extremely serious subject and matter. How am I supposed to have a fun, lighthearted adventure when you've dropped such a serious matter in my lap? Things only get worse when the Kett show up. These guys aren't treated as a joke, no matter how many times Ryder quips at the Archon. They are shown as a serious threat, carrying out a mission of genocide across the entire cluster. Am I supposed to be laughing at that? Is this supposed to be funny?
They are us. How many have I killed? Not know. Right, I do not know.
Jaal, the blame belongs to the Kett.
I think you're beginning to see the problem. I'm not saying that Mass Effect can't be a more lighthearted adventure tale, though I still question why, but this game can't even keep a consistent tone, wildly throwing the player between lighthearted jokey moments and supposed serious drama/emotional moments. Like, what exactly am I supposed to be feeling here?
Except I am gonna fuck your shit up. How's that for great?
The best thing I can offer them is I just say, look, I'm not going to let this not feel like Mass Effect.
As we move on, we can now begin to discuss the themes of Andromeda. I'm talking specifically about discussing the overall general themes Mass Effect Andromeda wishes to convey, or rather the lack thereof. I originally had planned to discuss this in my last video, but felt that since that video was more focused on the main plot, it would be better to save it for this video since the themes of this game go beyond the main plot and are instead tied into all aspects of the game, or rather the game attempts to tie them into all other parts of the game. It is important to understand what these themes are up front so we can see how all the other game systems fail to support them and in many ways contradict them. And after seeing a consistent complaint about Andromeda development in the comments section, I felt this topic needed to be addressed up front in this final analysis video. So let's dig in. Of course, I don't think I need to explain what a theme is. Any good story, hell even most games without a traditional story, generally have central themes that are carried out and reinforced throughout the narrative. This can be anything as simple as good versus evil, freedom versus control, or a central theme of family. The Last of Us explores themes about the nature of humanity. What does it mean to be human? Is mere survival enough? How important is love, especially in the sake of survival? And is love ultimately harmful or selfish? These themes are reinforced beyond the cutscenes in the game, but are found in the art design, the notes and audio logs the player finds, the interactions between the player and the various NPCs, and on and on. So when at the end of the game the final level visually ties the scene from the opening to the ending, we as a player understand what is going on, what the character is thinking at that moment, and what the story is trying to convey. Similarly, the original Mass Effect has its own set of core central themes, and while the original ending of Mass Effect 3 bungled these themes for some weird, confusing, and rushed ending, it doesn't change the fact that these themes were displayed and reinforced for 99% of the original trilogy. The two most central themes of the original Mass Effect trilogy are A, unity through diversity, and B, freedom. This series makes it clear that each unique alien race is important and helps contribute to making the overall galaxy a better place. No one species is better than the other, and despite how much you may not like it, the cooperation of the other races is necessary to your own survival. I want to briefly linger on this first theme because Mass Effect as a series allows you to deeply roleplay your own character, and because of that, some people believe that certain themes can be destroyed should the player choose a more renegade path, for example. However, this is not really true for the core themes the game chooses to espouse. Mass Effect 1 is the only game that comes close to breaking this first theme, but that's not exactly true. You see, in Mass Effect 1, your Shepard can be pretty racist, agreeing with much of the xenophobia that Ashley Williams routinely spouts. Hell, the end of the game actually allows you to kill off the Council, a central governmental body comprised of different alien species, and then advocate for a human takeover of the position to keep the other races in line. But at the end of the day, Mass Effect 1 forces you to work with different alien species in order to defeat Sovereign. Of course, the developers and likely writers realized how inconsistent this Renegade Shepard was with their general theme and pretty much eliminated this racist aspect of Shepard in the sequels. In future titles, Renegade Shepard is more about getting the job done no matter the cost, and less about ensuring humanity is seen as a dominant species. And the human takeover of the Council ending is basically retconned out of existence in the sequels. The second and most easily identifiable theme is that of freedom. Shit, you can understand this in just the very first second of the game when you're asked to build your own character. The original Mass Effect trilogy hammers home the importance of freedom. This is accomplished on both a meta level with regards to the player having literal choice in how the story plays out, as well as the narrative level with regards to our fight with the Reapers and nearly every side quest in the series. Indeed, our conversations with Saren in Mass Effect 1 are about debating the necessity of freedom in the face of extinction.
You've seen the vision from the beacons, Shepard. You of all people should understand what the Reapers are capable of. They cannot be stopped. Do not mire yourself in pointless revolt. Do not sacrifice everything for the sake of petty freedoms. The Protheans tried to fight, and they were utterly destroyed. Trillions dead, but what if they had bowed before the invaders? Would the Protheans still exist? Is submission not preferable to extinction?
I'd rather die than live under the rule of those machines.
To our shepherd, however, a life without freedom isn't worth living. Choice is everything. I could really get into just how great these two themes are in the original Mass Effect, and how well they are reinforced throughout the story, side quests, and gameplay systems, but we'd be here all day. Rather, it's simply important to note at the outset how clear these themes are and how well they are executed within each respective game. And we're only talking about these central themes, as the original trilogy is jam-packed with other themes such as the nature of life, colonialism, eugenics, family, religion, and on and on. Mass Effect 2 is especially peppered with references to the Bible. Shepard dies and comes back to life through a program called the Lazarus Project. Afterwards, he assembles a team of 12 disciples, squad mates, and the loyalty missions of these squad mates are typically named after Bible quotes. The Prodigal, Eye for an Eye, A House Divided, Sins of the Father. Oh, and of course, don't forget Legion's name.
Then what should I call you?
Geth.
I mean you, specifically.
We are all Geth.
What is the individual in front of me called?
There is no individual. We are Geth. There are currently 1,183 programs active within this platform.
My name is Legion, for we are many.
Well, that seems appropriate.
Christian Bible, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5, verse 9. We acknowledge this is an appropriate metaphor. We are Legion, a terminal of the Geth. We will integrate into Normandy.
With all that said, let's now look at Andromeda and its themes. Now I'd like to ask you now, what are the general themes of Mass Effect Andromeda? It's okay. You can take some time to pause this video and think. I'll wait. Well, the developers talked a lot about discovery and exploration a whole bunch pre-release, so that can certainly be considered a theme. Family would appear to be a theme, at least on the surface level. And I mean family in both the genetic sense and the ones you create through your relationships with initial strangers. In other words, friendship. Let's see, what else? Cooperation, maybe? You see, Mass Effect Andromeda has a real problem when it comes to simple questions such as what themes is the game trying to convey. And even the themes we are directly told are supposed to be at the heart of Andromeda are often undercut and contradicted by the game itself. The consistent word we often hear about Andromeda from reviewers and players alike is that it is boring. We especially saw this as a common complaint when it came to our companion characters in the game. Now, I detailed some of the reasons why the characters in Andromeda were so boring in my last video, but this feeling of boredom extends beyond those complaints and ties into the general lack of themes found in Andromeda, specifically the lack of any real conflict in the game, which I can now get into. Now, I talked a little early on about a common complaint I see directed towards Andromeda, not just in my video but in other videos discussing Andromeda and even on message boards as well. And the complaint often goes like this: SJWs ruined Mass Effect. A particularly insightful and thought-provoking critique. Yet, despite my not-so-subtle attempts to discredit this line of thinking in my past videos, it appears I now have to carefully explain why this is in fact an idiotic assertion and not one holding any real merit. Instead, I would propose that the opposite is true, that the lack of SJWs in Mass Effect Andromeda is what ruined the game. What the fuck am I talking about? Well, stick with me as I attempt to carefully dissect the term SJW in a well-reasoned manner that is sure not to piss off anyone in the comments section below. No! To start with, we have to understand what we are talking about when someone uses the phrase SJW, unironically. SJW is simply an abbreviation for Social Justice Warrior, a term somehow made derogatory by the idiotic Gamergate crowd a few years ago when that whole controversy flared up. However, at its heart, The term social justice warrior should not be one that generates any sort of scorn or hatred, at least not in individuals with basic human decency or brains. After all, a social justice warrior is someone concerned with social justice. Individuals that stand up for things like racial equality, gay rights, better treatment for women, criminal justice reform, and you get the point. Often this form of social justice is extended towards entertainment. This is because our entertainment, especially games, movies, and books, export their own collective set of values and judgments towards the world at large. As such, they can be seen and stated as holding the collective cultural ideals of a specific region, specifically the West in our case, which is where most forms of entertainment come from. An example: American movies tend to focus a lot on the singular hero, usually a man but not always the case, that is strongly independent and free-minded. They are the ones that end up saving the day, oftentimes bucking the usual authority figures that might stand in their way or challenge their independence.
Sir? I don't want any more trouble like you had last year in the Fillmore district. Understand? That's my policy.
Yeah, well, when an adult male is chasing a female with intent to commit rape, I shoot the bastard. That's my policy.
This can be interpreted as a reflection on the values we Americans hold: freedom, independence, quick action as opposed to lengthy debates and rules, and self-righteousness. On the other hand, movies from other parts of the world might place a further emphasis on family, religion, or the state. Again, these reflect the cultural ideals of a specific region, whether intentionally or not. So when James Bond, our hero, beats the shit out of women and treats them as disposable objects in the early 1960s movies, we can interpret this as a cultural value of the West, especially when women were treated the same in most movies of that time period. The same goes for the portrayal of minorities in films and television. When all black people, for instance, are portrayed as unintelligent or criminals within cinema of a certain time period, then we can take that as towards the general public sentiment with regards to minorities of that time period. Fast forward to our present, and we still see youth entertainment as a means of espousing and analyzing the cultural norms and ideas we believe are important to Western society. Again, this can be done either consciously or unconsciously. Going back to my first example, Western movies still focus on the importance of individualism, free thought, and freedom in general. Michael Bay isn't exactly subtle about this. Yet there are also certain values which entertainers may not be consciously aware of, which they espouse that can be seen as a negative, including how women are often interpreted in such media. If women are often seen as simply the prize the male hero gets at the end of a movie, then that speaks towards a general cultural sentiment with regards to women in Western society. Now, do you think someone like Michael Bay consciously chooses to downplay the importance of women and espouse harmful views about them? Well, gosh, I hope not. However, even well-intentioned individuals can make mistakes, especially when dealing with subjects they personally have not experienced nor cannot experience, such as being a woman or a minority. And this is often where social justice warriors come in with regards to entertainment, bringing to light what certain individuals believe are harmful depictions of whatever the issue of the day is, whether that be the depiction of women, racial minorities, individuals suffering from mental conditions, and you get the point. The hope is that if creators are more aware of the harmfulness they might potentially be causing in their fictional stories, they may be more careful and critical when creating future movies, books, or television shows. One that hopefully is more conscious of the themes and values it chooses to espouse. All that said, the stereotypical depiction of a quote-unquote SJW is that of a short-haired, typically white woman being triggered that a specific character in a movie dared to mention the word gay, and not the more inclusive LGBTQ+++, non-gender pronoun. And sure, that exists in some places, mostly Tumblr. The reality isn't actually like that for real individuals seeking to promote healthy social change and depictions in media and society as a whole. And that's not to say that a discussion about gender pronouns can't be had. Still, the perception of the general public outside of this is that SJWs are seeking to attack their favorite media, that all movies will feature ugly lesbian women in fully covered garments, that male lead characters, specifically white male leads, will no longer be a thing, and the very ideas of boobies will be a dream of summer past. I'm not even going to try and unpack how ridiculous all of that is. But the truth of the matter is that most SJWs do not seek to destroy any piece of entertainment. As I said before, the problem comes in the details of these products and the collective depiction of them in the media. It's okay to have a story about a cynical male who beats women to cope with his anger. However, it becomes a problem if every movie has a male lead beating women yet is simultaneously portrayed as the hero. What do you think that would say about our society? Yeah, I know. I'm working my way back to Mass Effect. Now, given all that I've just said, we can now finally get back to talking about Mass Effect Andromeda and its failure to properly promote any real themes. Remember, we as a society seek to espouse certain cultural themes and values through our entertainment products, and nowhere is this more important than in the realm of sci-fi. You see, unlike the fantasy genre, sci-fi is often much more forward-looking. It's concerned about the future of humanity and often explores ethical questions that may possibly rear their head in the future, or use the trappings of a future setting to reset our biases such that we can more objectively analyze a moral or ethical situation. Blade Runner questions whether or not machines called replicants, who are treated as a disposable work resources, can be considered human, whether they are deserving of any basic human rights. However, these same questions can be applied to any oppressed set of people in a modern society. Do immigrant workers have a fair voice in their respective societies, or are they too treated as a disposable workforce not to be concerned with? The themes explored in a film like Blade Runner have applicability to our own real world. Of course, the most famous sci-fi show of all time is all about exploring tough, ethical, and moral questions in our society. Obviously, I'm talking about Star Trek. I don't think it's hard to imagine what the fuck the writers were commenting on when Kirk tried to mediate a dispute between the half-black, half-white-faced people who were oppressed by the half-white, half-black-faced people.
Factors. He's a liar. He raided our homes, tore us from our families, herded us together like cattle, and then sold us as slaves.
They were savages, Captain. We took them into our hearts, our homes. We educated them.
Yes. Just education enough to serve the master race.
Now, as we talked about before, the original Mass Effect is all about exploring tough, moral, and ethical questions. Disputes about the use of the genophage, which side of the Quarry and Geth conflict you come down on, whether you believe a human can or even should fall in love with a machine, the ethics of eugenics, the nature of revenge and forgiveness, and I could go on all day. Yet when we actually take a look at Andromeda, no real ethical or moral conflicts exist. It's mostly a story about good guys facing down an evil bad guy. There are no real conflicts taking place that explore either the nature of humanity or explores questions about our own society. Hell, even our own crewmates are totally devoid of any real interpersonal conflict. In other words, Mass Effect Andromeda is a total safe space odyssey, as opposed to the social justice warrior crusade, which would have actually been thought-provoking and interesting. I can't stress this enough. The original Mass Effect used the threat of the Reapers as a framing device to explore themes about the nature of humanity and our society. The majority of Mass Effect 3 isn't finding some magical MacGuffin to blow up the Reapers. Instead, it's spent getting involved in and solving tough ethical questions and moral dilemmas, the very same dilemmas that were established from the very start of the series. Hell, even Mass Effect 2, the Normandy is jokingly referred to as the SSV daddy issues because of how many loyalty missions deal with unresolved parental conflicts. The original trilogy was never about the Reapers. It's why BioWare took their sweet time before actually having them show up. Mass Effect was about the characters, the world, and the questions it asked of you, the player. These questions only became more complex as the series progressed. Even in Mass Effect 1, the most straightforward plot of the series, the real story isn't about stopping Saren and his supposedly evil plan. The story of Mass Effect 1 is about humanity. Literally. It's about defining humanity's place and role in this new galactic society. Are we a diplomatic or cooperative species willing to work within this new society towards intergalactic peace? Or Are we a more rogue, go-it-alone type species that do what we think is best for ourselves and the galaxy, regardless of what any other race thinks? By the end of Mass Effect 1, our big choice is literally deciding the fate of the Galactic Council, whether to sacrifice them to defeat Sovereign, or sneakily sacrifice them to get rid of a political nuisance, or save them. This naturally ties into the main theme that the player has been exploring the entire game. This is why Khaleesi bin al-Jilani is constantly questioning you in the game. It's why Rear Admiral Kahoku badges you about the Normandy's co-human alliance design, why Ashley Williams is a racist, why you were asked your opinion on the Terra Firma Party, and on and on and on. Alright, let's turn back now to Mass Effect Andromeda. What are its main themes? What ethical questions do we explore? What moral conflicts do we find ourselves in? What does it have to say about the human condition? And can any of its situations, either ethically or morally, be tied to our own real world? Well, no, not really. Andromeda really is just about stopping the Ket, who are just clear as day evil, a bad guy race. While there are a few exceptions scattered here and there, or rather attempts at exceptions, Andromeda is totally bare of any real themes or weighty conflict. One would think that a story about a bunch of refugees/immigrants showing up to a supposedly better place to make new lives for themselves would be ripe for weighty, time-relevant questions and conflicts. Yet it appears the concept of that premise is totally lost on the writers. Instead of a story about a bunch of alien races already present in this new galaxy having to deal with a race of what to them would be aliens showing up trying to sap their resources, we get a story about an evil race trying to commit a type of galactic genocide while at the same time trying to harvest the power of some long-lost ancient alien race mega weapon thing. There is nothing behind this premise lurking behind the shadows. What we see is what we get. An evil bad guy race, a magical MacGuffin, and jokes all around. But rather than spend my time picking apart the things Andromeda didn't include, which we'll get into later with the sidecasts, let's turn now to speaking of how it fails to capture the feelings and themes it specifically states it wishes to invoke. If you've watched any of the pre-release interviews and marketing materials for Andromeda, especially the ones I've shown in my past videos, then you know how much BioWare Montreal talked up the exploration aspect of Mass Effect Andromeda. There were numerous references to Mass Effect 1, and fulfilling the promise of exploration that game aspired to all the way back in 2007. Right off the bat, I want to say that I never thought of the Mass Effect series as one for open, free world exploration. The Mass Effect series has always been a very tightly controlled world that you explored in a guided manner with some leeway. It was about invoking the feeling of an endless, expansive world full of rich detail and lore, but that which was actually carefully guided. You understood the Citadel to be a gigantic space station that millions of beings lived on, but in actuality, it was basically the Presidium and a few small areas in the wards. Yet, Andromeda was determined to give us the exploration that they thought we, and the Mass Effect series in general, was about. However, it's clear that this type of approach is one of the grievous errors with regards to Mass Effect Andromeda. The world is the biggest Mass Effect has ever been, and close to the biggest world BioWare has ever done, next to Star Wars The Old Republic. But it's also its most boring world. Andromeda's galaxy feels barren, and often small compared to series' past titles, and in general lacks any sense of discovery. Eos is the template for every other planet, and what you see on Eos is exactly what you'll see for the rest of the game. The same caches to discover, the same vaults to turn on, the same fetch quests with minimal story or dialogue, the same barren wastelands to traverse in between. The exploration in Andromeda is just horrible and uninspired. Despite being an explorer in an alien galaxy, everything feels so safe and familiar and repetitive. There is nothing for the player to truly discover. It's at this point I have to extend a discussion to speak about world design, especially with regards to open world games, and in doing so I'm going to compare Andromeda to past Mass Effect titles as well as The Witcher 3, which I think is one of the best open worlds of this current generation. It's not just big for the sake of being big, but it is carefully crafted with meaningful content stuffed with places to explore, quests to undertake, and a world that is carefully married to its narrative, greatly reinforcing what the player is already told in the story. I'll give you an example. In The Witcher 3, within the starting area of Velen, we are told that a war has broken out between the Empire of Nilfgaard and the Kingdoms of the North. This is a major part of the overall narrative of The Witcher 3. However, this background narrative isn't simply communicated to the player through words. Rather, the entire game's world, including the area of Velen, communicates this aspect of the narrative to the player purely through the visuals of the game's fictional world. Dead bodies hang from trees. Fields of unburied bodies pollute open fields. Entire towns are razed. Civilians weep over murdered loved ones, and soldiers from both factions are seen walking about their respective territory. All of these visual aspects reinforce to the player that an active war is being waged within the area that has real effects on the world and the people that inhabits it, which in turn further helps immerse the player into that world. Of course, this immersion is heightened further by the supporting side quests that tend to relate back to this main plot point, that being the war between the North and Nilfgaard. Again, the world and its narrative are tied hand in hand. Let's look at Mass Effect Andromeda now. Upon arriving in this new galaxy, we're eventually told of this new alien race called the Ket, and how they are essentially at war with every alien species they encounter. We learn that the initiative outpost on Eos was destroyed by the Ket, and that the Angara have been engaged in decades of warfare with the Ket. Yet, despite this war with the Ket being the central aspect of Andromeda's entire story, we see very little of this expressed within the game's world design. We don't so much as see the effects of war with the Ket has on a specific area and its people, so much are we told about it. Yes, Ket swoop down in seemingly random areas to battle the player, but these are in isolated, barren regions. I think Vold is the perfect encapsulation of this horrendous world design. We're told right upon our arrival at this Angaran colony that there are dozens of Angaran Daras, an equivalent of a city, engaged in warfare with the Ket. That Vold is one of the centers of the war with the Ket. Yet, upon leaving the Angaran base, this supposed war is never really expressed to the player within the world of Vold. We never get to visit one of these alleged Angaran Daras. We don't see any of the cities under siege by the Ket. We don't see Angaran civilians weeping over their dead, scores of dead bodies from both sides littering the frozen landscape. We don't see crops and towns razed to the ground. We don't see large forces of Angaran patrolling highways. Instead, we are treated to another barren world with isolated conflict zones in between. And nobody we encounter on Vold seems particularly concerned or affected by the Ket. Everyone just so happens to be some soldier on the front line. We don't see regular civilians just trying to get by, or bands of soldiers struggling to get through their next day. Again, we feel a disconnect between what we are told and what we actually play. As a result, we the player feel bored and unaffected by whatever hardships the game's narrative attempts to push into our laps, and the world itself feels lifeless, precisely because it feels as though no one actually lives in these worlds, no matter how many supposed people we encounter. But despite all of this, one of the worst aspects of Mass Effect Andromeda's world design is tied to the game's narrative, and specifically this conflict with the Ket. Let's go back now. Remember, the goal of the team was to fulfill the promise of Mass Effect 1, to make a game about discovery and exploration. Hell, that's the whole reason they chose to shoot us off to a whole new galaxy. Yet the very framing of their chosen narrative for the title directly hampers this effort. Let me explain. Everything in Andromeda's world either deals with the Angara or the Ket, and I mean everything. Every outpost/colony was a former Angaran world. Every quest typically deals with the Ket or the Angara. Almost everything in this corner of the Andromeda galaxy was formerly explored by or belonged to the Angara. Now, why is this a problem? Well, it's because there's nothing left for the player to explore, nothing new for them to find or learn. Because everything in Andromeda deals with the Ket versus the Angara, nothing outside of this conflict is left for the player to explore. And it's not just that everything has been already explored, it's that everything tells the same story over and over. Let's take another step back and compare Andromeda's galaxy to Mass Effect 1. For starters, Mass Effect 1 is a full galactic civilization where much of the space the player flies through has been explored. This is despite the fact that only less than 1% of the full Milky Way galaxy has been actually explored in the original trilogy. However, to a first-time player, this entire galaxy is new, and because not everything in Mass Effect 1 and the rest of the series revolved around Saren or the Reapers, the player could discover and learn new things around every corner. Nearly every planet description became interesting as they could tell their own stories or reveal some hidden fact. Think back to the Leviathan of Dis in Mass Effect 1, or the Great Rift on the planet Klendagon. Meanwhile, even the planets you visited tied to the main quest in Mass Effect 1 weren't directly tied to Saren or the Reapers. They had their own little stories and problems they were dealing with, which were only tangentially related to Saren. Noveria was a corporate research colony where the player engaged in industrial espionage and solved corporate political rivalries. Zoo's Hope gave a glimpse into human colonies out on the fringe of council space and the terrible secret the Exogeny Corporation had hidden underneath it all. Then there were the countless side quests on separate planets that dealt with subjects that ran the gambit, from biotic reparations, pirate slavery rings, rogue human black ops groups, and more. All in all, the original Mass Effect's world felt vast and vibrant, with a million different stories occurring at the same time as the player's journey. The galaxy wasn't defined by the Reapers or Saren. It was its own place that existed long before the Reaper War. When a player entered a new system or planet in Mass Effect 1 or Mass Effect 2, they had no idea what they would find. Perhaps they'd hear a rogue transmission calling for aid from any available starship. Maybe Admiral Hackett would get them on the line and inform them about some pressing Alliance matter in the region. Or they'd intercept some communication between a pirate mercenary band. Once again, the original Mass Effect trilogy invoked that feeling of Star Trek, where the Enterprise could find their way into any number of adventures by pure accident. A simple mission to observe a stellar anomaly could turn into a whole episode about some ancient, powerful alien entity. Similarly, the mission to track down the Collectors in Mass Effect 2 could inadvertently lead the player to repairing a solar radiation grid that threatened to destroy a colony. Getting back to Andromeda, and we can see that nothing like this exists within Andromeda's world. Because the Ket and Angara are all that exists in the star cluster, and because the Angara have forgotten much of their pre-Scourge or even pre-Ket history, there is nothing left for the player to discover or learn. When a player enters a new system in Andromeda, they can expect to encounter the same set of things repeated endlessly. Click on a planet and read a description that reads similar to this. A large gas giant on the edge of the system, nicknamed whatever in the original Angaran. Its trajectory has been altered by the presence of the Scourge. That is literally what the player will read for 95% of all planetary descriptions in Andromeda. A physical description, maybe a brief explanation to its name, and how it's been affected by the Scourge. Gone are the entire stories that went within these descriptions, and surrounding mysteries. There is no Leviathan of Dis, or Beings of Light, or Great Rift of Klendagon, nor do any of the planets explain some aspect of Angaran culture or religion. Adding to this, none of the supposed anomalies you discover in the game are that interesting either. They mostly break down to either a destroyed initiative vessel or satellite, a destroyed Ket shuttle or satellite, or a destroyed Angaran shuttle or satellite, all of which tell the same story. There was a battle, one side lost. Truly a riveting tale. The player doesn't warp into a system and stumble upon some transmission from an unknown source. They aren't contacted by Director Tan to inform them of some strange anomaly within the region they can explore. It's the same set of things in every system. A boring, lifeless set of planet descriptions and an anomaly consisting of a destroyed alien shuttle or satellite, both of which tell the same story. There is a war with the Ket, and this thing called the Scourge has changed the planet's physical characteristics. Do you feel like an explorer yet? Okay, so now that I've thoroughly explained how awful the game bungles its stated goal of exploration and discovery, I can finally start talking about more specific game elements, such as the side quests. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about general side quests, as I've already covered a lot of why they are lacking in my previous points, but in general, pretty much every side quest in Mass Effect Andromeda is terrible or half-baked, and I mean every side quest. I'm literally sitting here as I'm writing this and trying to think back on at least one memorable side quest in this game, not counting loyalty missions, which we'll get into next, and I can barely remember a single one. Why are they so bad, you ask? Well, it's a number of issues, and some of them I've already covered. For starters, the simple production quality on these side quests is extremely poor. I talked about this in my last video, but the simple fact is that the cinematic camera is used quite sparingly in Andromeda, even more so than Dragon Age Inquisition, which was BioWare's first use of the Frostbite engine. Despite coming out 2 years later, Andromeda feels like it has even lower production quality than Inquisition and couldn't overcome the same problems it had with seemingly simple things like camera presentation. Quests are doled out by NPCs just standing there, barely animated. The camera zooms in a little bit as both the quest giver and writer's mouth move as they attempt to mimic speech, but there are no cuts, no facial expressions, and no body animations. Our character will relay how their friends are being killed in an emotional voice performance while they just stand there with zero facial or body reactions. Ryder takes it all in an equally blank and robotic manner. Now this may seem like a small issue, but it goes a long way to breaking the game's immersion and sucking the player out of the fictional world. People play Western RPGs, and specifically BioWare RPGs, specifically for the story. What this means is that all aspects that relate to this narrative need to be top-notch. Otherwise, what should be a major strength for the game falls apart. It's hard to get a player to care for a side quest when they can see that the developers themselves didn't feel the need to spend time or resources into fully animating a scene with full use of resources such as the cinematic camera. It creates a schism between what a player would consider real quests, which would be those that use the cinematic camera, have full animations, and are even scored, and filler quests, which would be those that don't. Going back to the original trilogy, nearly every side quest and indeed every NPC when you spoke to them, including merchants, made use of the cinematic camera. For fuck's sake, even the merchants in the original trilogy had full backstories and dialogue trees. Meanwhile, Andromeda...
New clientele is always welcome here. Have a look. I'm sure you'll find something to your taste.
The sales pitch is good, but it's the follow-through that matters.
I'll let my inventory speak for itself.
When every quest has full movie production value, then subconsciously, the line between mainline quests and side quests becomes blurred. The player becomes fully engrossed in the world. They forget that they are simply playing a game that might technically have clear distinctions between side quests and main quests, and simply roleplay the game, taking and completing quests as they feel their character would. And naturally, this causes the player to feel more emotions due to the level of production value poured into these side quests. If you look back at an early Mass Effect 1 side quest, would you as a player really care about the fate of Serviceman Batia's bodily remains if that entire quest wasn't so cinematic? If this were Andromeda, Mr. Batia would have been some asshole on the Nexus who just stood there, stiff as a rock, as he told you his problems. You'd then walk 2 feet, talk to some other Nexus member who'd stand there stiff as a rock, and tell you the other side of the story. And then you'd make your choice, all within the same third-person camera you use in gameplay. It's completely immersion-breaking. Furthermore, the actual writing of these side quests are often just piss poor, and I mean really poor, like breaking the lore established within its own game universe poor. Let's look at one early side quest in Andromeda. The first time you visit the Nexus, you can choose to take on a side quest to determine whether a fellow Initiative member, a Taurian, murdered his friend and superior. It's a rather basic quest meant to explore the legal aspect of the Initiative, which has, just come into this new galaxy. We'll get into this a bit, but a good side quest typically reveals or teaches the player something about a fictional world, in addition to having good character writing. Thus, the premise of the quest isn't that bad to start with. You could compare it to the quest involving the Hanar religious herald in Mass Effect 1. The entire point of that quest is twofold. 1. To engross the player into how one aspect of the Citadel functions, in this regard, religious freedom and expression, and 2. For the player to learn about the Hanar culture. This is of course also wrapped up in fun and witty character writing to disguise the true nature of the quest. In this Taurian quest in Andromeda, none of that smart, witty writing is present. The characters in the quest are dull and flat. You mostly only talk to this Taurian, and he's about as dry as they come, despite possibly facing execution, and no one else really seems concerned about the whole affair. We do get to talk to his supposed wife, who originally pleads with us to come in and look into the matter, insisting her husband is innocent, but please notice the production quality in the scene.
They say it's murder. They're calling him the first murderer in Andromeda, but the dead man was his friend. He wouldn't have... There are witnesses and evidence, but it's all circumstantial. At worst, it was an accident. His name is Nilken Rensis. He could give you the details if you were willing to speak with him. Please.
Now let's go back to Mass Effect 1 briefly, a decade-old game with a similarly distraught spouse.
Commander Shepard, my name is Samesh Bhatia. Forgive the intrusion, but I have nowhere else to turn.
It's no trouble. What can I do for you?
My wife was a Marine. She was in the 212 on Eden Prime.
What can we do for you?
I've requested that my wife's body be returned to me for cremation, but the military has refused my request.
Why did they refuse your request? There's got to be some reason.
I don't know. All I know is that they have declared it impossible for my wife to be returned to me.
There's no reason for your wife's body to be held like this. Just wait here.
Thank you for your time. I just want to give my wife a proper funeral, and the respect she deserves.
Yeah. In any event, during your exploration of Eos, you can track down the remains of his slain friend and piece together what happened. It turns out that this Turian did try to kill his friend because he wanted to run away from the Ket, but his shot missed. However, his friend ended up getting shot and killed anyway by the Ket. His story now becomes a bit more complicated because now we know for sure he's not exactly innocent. Yet, when we return to the station and relay this news to Director 10, his reaction is quite shocking in its stupidity. And it was a moment early on in this game that I put my head into the palms of my hand as I understood just how poor of a narrative I was in for. So, according to Director 10, because this Turian didn't actually kill his friend, then everything's okay. As he puts it, we're setting a dangerous precedent for justice here. A convicted murderer who didn't commit the murder. Wait, what? A dangerous precedent for justice? Huh? And then Ryder responds automatically with something equally as stupid. He says, I hear you. It sucks when things aren't black and white. What the fuck? It's baffling that the writers of this quest thought this was some kind of morally gray choice. This ain't no Sophie's Choice. It's as clear as day. Yes, this Turian didn't actually murder his friend, but he attempted to. And, last time I checked, attempted murder was a serious crime that can land individuals decades to life in prison. But apparently, according to the developers, if you take your gun and try to murder your friend, but miss, then everything's okay. No crime was committed. You're free to go. This is the quality of writing that we'll see consistent throughout Andromeda. Quests that start off with interesting ideas, but are bungled in execution.
And we're setting precedent for justice here in Andromeda. Now this. A convicted murderer who didn't commit the murder.
I hear you. It sucks when things aren't black and white.
Are they ever?
At this point, we've covered two reasons why the side quests are generally all terrible in Mass Effect Andromeda. One, they have extremely low production value, and two, the writing is just piss poor. Thirdly, their actual quest design is about as boring and unimaginative as they come. With regard to the majority of side quests in Andromeda, what you see is typically what you get. You're told to find X number of things or fix X number of sensors, and you do just that, at which point the quest is completed to very little fanfare. Most times you don't even get an ending conversation to wrap things up. There are very little twists or surprises, and the initial task rarely changes. This is about as lazy as quest design comes. When we look at The Witcher 3, for example, almost every quest, including side quests, have their own interesting twists and complete storylines. Very rarely does a side quest follow what you are initially tasked with achieving. An individual might task you with a simple job of finding out what happened to their missing wife, and the next thing you know, you're deciding between a dispute between the werewolf husband and his wife's sister who tricked the man's wife into being killed by him. Nearly every quest in The Witcher 3 is like this. The quest design is just phenomenal and constantly keeps the player on their toes. You think you're going to track down and kill some monsters, and the next thing you know, you're debating the ethics of your profession with more intelligent beasts. Mass Effect Andromeda's quest design rarely surprises the player or switches things up. It's typically a narrow, straightforward path. Collect this or kill that. Finally, Andromeda's side quests are so poor because they are just terribly contextualized, often tying very little into the game's overall narrative or failing to teach the player anything new about this fictional world or its characters. There is one side quest that pretty much broke my brain near the end of the game. Now I know you're wondering, which side quest could it be? Could it be the pregnant lady chase plotline? Could it be a side quest about the AI-hating initiative gang? Or the horribly long and tedious movie night questline? No, while those are all indeed truly horrible quests worth their own discussions, the side quest that truly broke me was the one involving the Krogans on Elaaden. Elaaden itself is an optional planet. The main story pretty much does not touch Elaaden. You can choose to entirely skip the planet if you focus solely on the main mission. Thus, the only reason to visit Elaaden is because you're interested in learning more about the Krogans and how they've adapted to the Andromeda galaxy. Upon touching down on the planet, some might already be shaking their heads since Elaaden turns out to be another barren wasteland, and even worse, one with the same topography as the first planet we visited, Eos. Elaaden and Eos are just barren desert planets. There really isn't much differentiating the two. But let's move on to the actual main side quest here involving the Krogans. If you've talked to Drac at some point in the game, he mentions the political situation on Elaaden and how the player might want to drop in and see how things are going. We learn early on upon landing on the planet from a seemingly friendly Krogan named Struck that the current leader of the Krogan colony, a female Krogan named Nakmor Morta, has become a warmongering tyrant who possibly seeks to start a war with the Nexus. Okay, not a bad start to a questline. It is a bit redundant considering we've already solved disputes between a warmongering Krogan clan in the original trilogy and helped chart a new course for the Krogan's future, but whatever. Remember, this game is backwards looking, might as well get used to it. Alright, off we go to enter the Krogan main compound where we meet Morta, and right away we have to stop ourselves from laughing.
I'm Nakmor Morta, Overlord of the Krogan in Helios. Drac, Kesh said you had a new job.
She didn't tell me you did.
Yeah, this has been noted in pretty much every review of the game, but I just have to point it out here. The Krogans in Andromeda just sound horribly out of character, especially the females. I get that we haven't really spoken to many female Krogans in Mass Effect besides Mass Effect 3, but even then, Bakara sounded proper in Mass Effect 3. Morta and Kesh sound downright hilarious in Andromeda. But let's move on though. She greets us in a hostile manner, referring to us only as Nexus, and notes how the initiative will pay, which would seem to confirm our earlier reports that she is a warmongering tyrant seeking to attack the Nexus. Our conversation with her is very short and very weird. She basically dismisses us, and oddly the player can't ask her any questions. We can't confront her whatsoever about the disturbing reports we've heard about her wanting to attack the Nexus. But we can initially let this oddness slide. Perhaps we don't want to tip her off about what we know, and she just doesn't like speaking to Nexus personnel. We part ways with her and talk to our other secret Krogan contact, who informs us that Morta is trying to recover a remnant power core from the massive crashed remnant ship on that planet, and that she plans to convert the core into a bomb to destroy the Nexus. Naturally, this is a serious threat, and we resolve to recover the remnant core before the Krogans allied with Morta can do so. Things take an interesting twist when, after fighting our way through the remnant ship, we discover that the power core has already been removed. This leads us on a hunt for clues as we attempt to track down just who stole the drive core, eventually leading us to a hidden base staffed with Krogans who appear to be from the same clan as Struck, our friendly Krogan. We kill them all and take back the drive core. It's now time to go back to the Krogan colony and confront both Struck and Morta to figure out just what the hell is going on here. Upon confronting these two individuals, Struck immediately lies and says that we took the drive core and sold it. We refute this by saying that it was already taken, and Morta believes us. It's at this point Struck attempts to pin the losing of the drive core as the fault of Morta and her poor leadership. He states how his clan will recover the drive core and prove themselves to be the true leaders of all Krogan. His big talk is undone when we inform him and everyone else that we are the ones that have the drive core and we took it from Struck, who who had paid scavengers to steal it in the first place. What happens next is one of the most hilarious and silly animated slap fights in all of gaming. Morta slaps Struck into submission and exiles him and his clan. At which point she turns to us and demands that we hand over the Drive Core, otherwise the Krogans will never be allied with the Nexus. She even states that they won't abide by Nexus laws if we don't hand over the Drive Core. But if we give her the Drive Core, we can set up a Nexus outpost on Eladin. Alright, now is when the entire quest collapses and your brain falls out of your head. All the tiny little problems the quest had at the start fall over one another, and we're left again with a confusing, empty shell of a quest. For starters, why were we lured into this dispute over the Drive Core by Struck in the first place? Remember, by the end of the quest, we learned that Struck paid scavengers to steal the Drive Core and then killed them to take it for himself in order to shame Morta and have a powerful weapon with which to rally Krogans towards him and attack the Nexus. Nothing in his plan supports having a Pathfinder from the Nexus potentially uncovering and undoing everything he's already accomplished. Now you could say that he initially planned to blame the losing of the Drive Core on the Nexus, but the fact that we easily deny this and Morta believes us tells us that this was a terrible plan. Plus, he'd already paid outside scavengers to steal the Drive Core in the first place. He could have easily lied and said that those scavengers were Nexus personnel to stoke a war. So the reality is that there was absolutely no reason for Struck to involve us in his plan. Him doing so only caused his plan to fail. But the more egregious sin of this side quest is just how little it teaches us about the Krogan situation on Eladin. At the end of the quest, we are given this seemingly weighty decision about whether or not we wish to ally with the Krogans. But because we've had no real discussion with Morta prior to this final decision, the final quest choice makes no sense. We have no idea what Morta's plans are for the future of the Krogans. We don't know how she plans to govern the Krogan, how she plans to settle old rivalries, what are the lingering effects of the Genophage, how does she plan to deal with the exploding Krogan birth rates assuming the Genophage is completely cured. What does the Krogan alliance entail? She said they won't abide by Nexus laws if we don't give her the Drive Core. Does that imply that prior to this, Krogans were observing Nexus laws? Then why does murder just seem fine on Eladin? Didn't we have a prior quest where we had to decide the fate of one murderer on the Nexus? Who? What? Huh? Why would a player even deny giving the Krogan the Drive Core? Prodromos, our human colony, doesn't need any power from what we've seen. It's a thriving outpost with a full remnant terraforming vault turned on, making the planet more viable every single day. Why would we choose to keep it for ourselves, especially when the game can't even tell us how keeping it for ourselves will benefit us? Well, you say, maybe once we have an alliance I can ask Morta all these questions. So you give her the power core. Alright, Morta. Time to tell me about your plans for the future of the Krogan and the entire political landscape of Eladin. I'm sorry, what? No, that's probably just a glitch. Come on out. Let's talk about the Krogan and maybe even get some personal insight into you. Are you fucking kidding me? She won't talk to us? At all? After everything we just did? Nothing? Fucking nothing? Somebody help me.
Excuse me.
Out of my... Shepard! My friend.
You destroy Saren and the Geth has worked out for you. Glad we didn't have to kill each other on Vermeer.
You made the rise of her not possible. Vermeer was a turning point for the Krogan, though not everyone was happy about it.
Sounds like you've got big changes ahead for the Krogan.
We are making a neutral ground where all clans are welcome. Fertile females can be shared among clans. We will strengthen the race as a whole.
You threaten everything that makes us strong. It will not last.
Maybe. Until then, you're lucky to be a part of it, Round.
What do the women of Clan Earth not think about this plan? This sounds ambitious. How's it gone so far? How do you maintain security with so many different clans in one place? I hope that works well for your people. But back to the reason I'm here.
As that entire Krogan side quest showcases, Andromeda is absolutely terrible at providing any sort of greater depth to its side quests. They are incapable of providing greater context or expanding this new world for the series. Instead, they are purely gamified, for lack of a better term. They simply provide the player with gameplay rewards for their completion, whether that be experience, viability, credits, or a new outpost. There's just an entire planet run by Krogans, and we can't even get some insight into how they govern themselves or their plans for the future. And so with that little side quest, we can end our examination of the horrendous general side quests in Andromeda. Quests of low production value, poor writing, poor contextualization, poor quest design, and rife with inconsistency. A far cry from the series past.
UNC's and the Mako, from a player experience, there wasn't much there. I mean, if you were like me and you just were happy driving, you were golden. That was it. And there's the odd combat there, but it didn't really fulfill itself.
Message for you, Commander. Just came in over a secure channel.
Shepard, this is Admiral Kahoku. I found out who set that trap for my men. The ones killed by the Threshamur. Damn, I hope you get this message. It was a group called Cerberus. An Alliance Black Ops organization. Top secret, highest level security clearance. They vanished a few months ago. Dropped right off the grid. Nobody knew where they went or what they were up to. They've gone completely rogue, Shepard. They're conducting illegal genetic experiments, trying to create some kind of super soldier.
You write letters and everyone ignores you. Force is the only thing people appreciate. So how about if I kill Chairman Burns and finish this charade?
Please, I was trying to help you people.
Let's not do anything we're all gonna regret.
Why not? What have we got to lose? Since the chairman here decided that we didn't get reparations, we've got nothing left to live for.
That always felt like something that I thought we could nail. Maybe not, back then, but it's something that we should focus on. And that's what we're really sort of starting to push, is that more open world experience, but one that has, the level of quality in those encounters and the things that you would find on those planets, and even just the story of each of those planets that you would come to expect in any mission that you'd experience in Mass Effect.
With general side quests out of the way, we can now talk about this game's loyalty missions. Well, not exactly. We first have to discuss why the developers specifically chose to call them loyalty missions in every pre-release interview before the game came out. This struck me as odd even back then, as loyalty missions were something specific to Mass Effect 2 and central to the plot of that game. They were specifically called loyalty missions because completing them allowed the player the ability to gain a squad member's loyalty, which in turn would increase their survival odds in the final suicide mission. Without a squad mate's loyalty, the chances of them surviving the final suicide run were slim. Thus, these quests were more important beyond your typical companion quest. BioWare games have always had quests tied specifically towards specific squad mates that usually flesh out their backstory a little more. Even Mass Effect 1 had companion quests. There was Garrus' quest involving Dr. Ceylon, Rex's quest to recover his grandfather's armor, and Tally's quest involving the Geth data disk for her pilgrimage. All the way back to Baldur's Gate, companion quests have been a part of BioWare titles. Yet, loyalty missions were something different and specifically relevant to the story of Mass Effect 2. So when BioWare Montreal began to talk about how loyalty missions were, quote, back for Andromeda, I was certainly puzzled. Were they suggesting that squad mates could die in Andromeda? Or that serious adverse actions could occur if I didn't gain their, quote, loyalty? Well, if you've played Andromeda, you know the answer to that question is no. The supposed loyalty missions in Andromeda are nothing more than the typical companion quests that have been in every BioWare game since Baldur's Gate. They don't really tie into or affect the overall plot/ending in any meaningful way, and your squad mates neither die or react adversely to you if you choose to ignore them. In fact, it's possible to beat the entire main game and then do these loyalty missions after, which begs the question, why did Montreal try to label these companion quests as loyalty missions? I can only speculate it was a cheap way to try and associate Andromeda with one of the best BioWare games of all time. With that preface out of the way, we can actually start talking about these loyalty missions. As far as companion quests go, most are serviceable. They aren't as bad as your typical side quests in the game since they have, actual production value. Plus, most do actually attempt to change up the regular gameplay and level design found in the main game. But few reach either the gameplay or emotional highs of, say, Mass Effect 2. For one, all the companion quests in Andromeda are shooting galleries. Yes, the context of these fights are always different, but it's all the same in the end. Walk into a room, kill everything, talk to someone, kill some more, and get a meaningless choice at the end. On the other hand, Mass Effect 2's loyalty missions had more variety. Yes, there were plenty of shoot-em-up quests, but there were also loyalty missions where you played detective, some where you played lawyer, some where you played thief, and others that were a mix of all these elements. Samara and Thane's loyalty missions are the most interesting since they involve almost entirely no shooting or fighting of any kind. It's mostly just talking and following. As I said, Andromeda mostly just sticks to shooting and, unlike Mass Effect 2, provides little variation once the actual shooting stops, like say stopping the shooting to change back into the role of a lawyer/advocate. Andromeda companion quests mostly change things up to present the player with new ways to shoot enemies as opposed to engaging in dialogue. But we're getting a little ahead here. Let's examine some of these Andromeda loyalty missions in turn. I'll start with my personal favorites and work down from there. I think of all the loyalty missions, Liam is probably my favorite. I know what you're thinking. Liam? That fucking idiot? The one character I and many others absolutely loathe because of his smug idiocracy? Yes, while Liam is indeed a fucking waste of space, his loyalty mission is one of the better designed ones in the whole game. Because for one, it's actually fun, and the humor actually lands, a rarity in this allegedly more lighthearted game. There are exceptions, of course. Liam's Quest is just a fun ride that doesn't take itself too seriously. It parodies Star Wars, none of the crew takes the main antagonist very seriously, and everyone gets a turn to crack a decent joke. In this context, it makes sense. Why should they fear this Talon leader? He's nothing compared to the enemy Rider faces any day of the week. He's a joke. Liam's side quest is most interesting because I honestly see it as a microcosm, an example of the type of game I think the developers and writers wanted to make. Remember how we talked about the tone at the very start? Well, Liam's Quest is the lighthearted adventure tone this game could have been had the main plot and worlds not been totally at odds with it. It's also probably why they chose to show this loyalty mission off above all others when they were showing the game off at PAX. It also has some interesting level design. Early on in the quest, the entire ship gets flipped around and the player and crew have to adjust to this inverted level design. Again, it's a tiny little twist that makes things slightly more interesting. There are plot problems, however. To start with, how the fuck did this Angara capture a Ket vessel? This is basically the Ket equivalent of a dreadnought, and somehow, some random Angaran pirate managed to capture it. I don't care if it was already damaged slightly, how the hell did he pull this off? And if this rogue Angara managed to do that, then what the fuck has the Resistance been doing this entire time? Remember in my earlier video about the plot, I questioned why we didn't get the Angara to help capture the Archon's flagship? Well, now we can see that this is something they should be capable of doing, so why the hell haven't they been doing this from the start? Secondly, who the hell is this Angaran pirate, and what in fuck's name is he doing? It's that time again, folks, where we have to really use our brain. He claims the ship is the property of something called Talon Wings, some pirates we've never heard of, and I don't believe ever fight after. So we're already off to a great start. Now I've gone through this fight paying close attention to every enemy, and it seems they are all Angara, which means that this is a pure Angara pirate ship, which just further hurts my brain. Again, using our good thinking caps, why would Angaran pirates exist? How could they possibly even exist? How do they offload their goods? You see, pirates tend to thrive when things like law and order and stable markets exist for them to offload their goods. But the Angara have been solely at war with the Ket for decades. Who exactly could Talon win pirate from prior to the arrival of the Nexus/Initiative? The answer is no one, because he'd be stealing from his own people, and while that's not unheard of, it doesn't make sense that there would be a lot of intergalactic trade going on while the Angara were alone in their war with the Ket. Nor would I think other Angara would be eager to offload the goods he stole, likely from the Resistance, to somehow enrich themselves. I would think beating the sole enemy of your people, hell-bent on wiping out your race, would be more important than some form of credits. You can't spend credits when you're dead, which means Talon could only operate once the Nexus/Initiative arrived, and really only after Kadar was set up. Even still, that's a stretch. The last and most important question is why in fuck's name would this Angara waste such a powerful vessel on pirating, instead of, using it to fight the genocidal enemy of your people? It'd be like Jewish people trapped in the Holocaust capturing a Nazi tank and weapons and instead of using it to liberate themselves and fellow Jews from the concentration camp, turned it around to steal food and clothes from their own fellow Jews. How the fuck does that make any sense? What's even more odd is this Ket ship is never brought up again when the mission ends. No one talks about what an amazing capture this is for the Angaran resistance. In fact, we irradiated the entire inside of the ship instead of finding some way to safely capture it for the resistance. Why? We have to remember that as far as the game shows, the Angara have no powerful starships, just tiny shuttles. The Ket Dreadnought would have been an incredibly powerful and valuable tool for the resistance. You get the point. This loyalty mission is best enjoyed by just turning your brain off and enjoying the jokes. It's fun, somewhat creative, and can make you laugh. Hardly the worst thing with regards to Andromeda. Jaal's loyalty mission is up next, as it's the one that had the most potential to be most interesting for this new world. After all, Jaal and the Angara are the only new alien species in this new entry besides the Ket. His quest involves some of his family members joining the Rokar, an offshoot of the Resistance that hates all aliens, led by an Angara named Aksul. It's that time again, where I'll explain how something doesn't make any sense. This time I can finally dig into the Rokar and the Resistance. To put it simply, the Rokar don't make a lick of sense, at least not in the way the game presents them. The game tells us that Aksul founded the Rokar after being imprisoned by the Ket for a year and believing the Resistance had abandoned him, proving to him they were too weak to fight the Ket. So, he creates his own splinter faction of the Resistance. Okay, this isn't completely terrible. The part that makes you scratch your head is the alien-hating stance of the Rokar. Remember, the initiative has only been here in Andromeda for a little over a year. That means that the Rokar couldn't have an extreme alien-hating stance prior to our arrival, since there are no other aliens besides the Ket, and the Resistance hated the Ket just as much as the Rokar. When we do actually arrive, his hatred for the Resistance is further misplaced, as prior to Ryder meeting with them on Aya, they had never formally had any relations with the Initiative/Nexus. Yes, they knew we existed, but they never sought us out or any form of cooperation. So the Rokar's hatred of all aliens seems weird, since we literally just got here and the Resistance has never met us until Jaal joins the crew. What this means is that the split between the Resistance and the Rokar just isn't very interesting, as we are given very little context regarding the difference of these groups, besides the Rokar absolutely hate us and the Resistance simply being mistrustful of us initially. Wouldn't it have made more sense if the Rokar were a more extremist version of the Resistance? One willing to do unspeakable things so long as it won the war against the Ket? Things like suicide bombing, kamikaze runs, sacrificing entire civilian cities, genetic experimentation on themselves and perhaps even us when we arrive. Anything and everything so long as it could lead to defeating the Ket. But no, they aren't presented that way at all. In fact, they seemingly spend more time fighting the Milky Way races than fighting the Ket. Why? With this nonsensical specter overhanging the entire Rokar, we can now get back to Jaal's mission. Like I said, it has the most potential, but it is actually pretty boring. We don't learn much about Angaran culture, the Rokar, or the Angara themselves during the mission. We mostly just listen to Aksul's recordings regarding his fear of the Milky Way species, while shooting our way through waves of baddies with almost zero variety in either gameplay or level design. The quest attempts some emotional depth regarding the quest by involving Jaal's family, but fails at even this. We're supposedly here to rescue them from the Rokar, but the family members we eventually meet are initially committed to the cause. Could this quest potentially explore the dangers of radicalization and how it can affect an entire family? No, not really. You see, one family member immediately has cold feet and tells us what Aksul is planning. He then gets shot in the back by his sister. Ooh, shocking. That sure to cause a rift in the family and lead to some tense drama. Oh wait, he's okay? But I just saw him get shot point blank in the back without any shields. He's fine though? Huh. And he's not even paralyzed. Great, so actions have no consequences. Right, so Jaal's brother just tells him to go stop Aksul, and then the next thing out of Jaal's mouth is a joke? Are you fucking kidding me? A joke? Here? Now? Why would you crack a joke after witnessing your brother get shot in the back by your sister? Hey, what's that about tone again?
You got it.
I'm glad you're here.
Well, with that out of the way, we can shoot our way to some more baddies and confront Axul. And here the loyalty quest falls apart and we end with another fake choice. You see, Axul attempts to paint us as the Milky Way races as another enemy. And it's not totally without merit considering Exiles kicked Angara off of Kadara. But rather than the game being smart and potentially having our choices have some consequence in this sequence, Jaal just starts lifting off all of our accomplishments. How we saved the Moshae, terraformed planets, how the Moshae trust us. Yet none of this swayed the other Angara or Axul. Hey, wouldn't this be the time for our past actions to come back to harm or help us? Like, say we kept the Angaran AI for ourselves, or say we blew up the Kett base with all the other Angara, or kept Sloane in charge of Kadara. All of these could be used for or against us in this final argument and either diffuse the situation or make it worse. Instead, we have no say in this conversation. A quest that starts off with what could have been an interesting exploration about the dangers of radicalization quickly spirals off into nonsense. Eventually, we are given a choice, but it's a fake one that makes no sense. At the very end, during this tense standoff, we are given a small window of time to either kill Axul or wait and do nothing as he sticks a gun in Jaal's face and threatens to shoot. Now at this point, a player has likely realized that no squad member in this game is in true danger or faces the threat of permanent death due to the player's actions. This game is not Mass Effect 2 or even Mass Effect 3. This means that not shooting Axul couldn't possibly result in the death of Jaal. As a video game player, a player just knows based on everything we've seen in the game that Jaal dying isn't even possible. So as a player, the choice is all but eliminated. This creates a problem when the player is trying to roleplay as Ryder, as while we the player know that Jaal can't die, Ryder can't possibly know this information. Which means the only way to have this choice make sense is to put yourself in the mind of Ryder, at which point the best choice is to shoot Axul if you want to save Jaal. Ryder would have no idea that Axul would only shoot his bullet so the bullet would only graze Jaal's face and not blow his head open. Like I said, it's a horrible choice and ends a pretty bland and pointless quest. There isn't even much fallout between Jaal's family members, even the one that shot the other in the fucking back. Like seriously, wouldn't the final choice be a little bit more weighty if instead of threatening to shoot Jaal, Axul threatened to shoot one of Jaal's family members? Then at least the player could have some tension as they would have no idea whether or not Axul would carry out the threat. But you know what? Let's just move on for now. Cora's loyalty mission is up next, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It's probably the least offensive mission from a pure story perspective, and at least presents an interesting choice at the end, and one that helps grow the companion tied to the quest. Cora was an Asari huntress. Take a shot. Her identity is tied up with them, and as someone always looking for a mentor, views them as her heroes. Thus, when she hears her all-time hero, the Asari huntress Sarissa, could be alive and rescued, she's ready to save the Asari arc. Her quest is also one of the most important plot-wise since it ties into the Asari arc. Gameplay-wise, it's nothing special. You shoot all the Kett on the ship so the Asari arc can escape. Eventually we encounter a recording detailing the Asari Pathfinder matriarch Ashara's final moments, where we learn that Sarissa allowed Ashara to die in order to gain data on the Kett, which would allow the Asari arc to escape and potentially help fight against the Kett in the future. It was a tough choice without a clear moral side on who to come down on. Cora is rightfully hurt as she learns the hero she looked up to isn't so noble, and that being in command often means making hard choices. The final choice is initially quite compelling. You can keep Sarissa's secret or share it to the other Asari and everyone else. Sarissa thinks they, the Asari, need help and to see a Pathfinder as a shining example. Revealing the truth could only lower morale. Meanwhile, Cora believes the truth should come out. Again, this initial choice is quite compelling with, for once, no clear morally right side. I thought this one of the better dilemmas in the game until I saw what happens when you uncover the truth and decide to keep it a secret. It turns out the Asari arc captain is so appalled that she immediately looks to stripping Sarissa of her title of Pathfinder and giving it to the rookie Asari commander we met early on in the mission. Wait, what? Pathfinders can just be removed just like that? What the fuck? Why does the Asari captain have this sole authority? So then how come no one at the Nexus were like, fuck you Ryder, we're making someone else a more experienced person Pathfinder. Well, this title of Pathfinder does seem to have a real clear structure to it. It seems anyone can be made a Pathfinder for whatever reason, and the title can be taken away for no reason at all. Of course, a player can step in and insist that Cerissa stay as Pathfinder, or to support stripping her of her title, but the fact that this is an option seriously degrades this final choice, in my opinion. It takes the morally gray area out of Cerissa's choice, since now the player and everyone else can paint it as a clear wrong action and punish her for it. And so with that halfway interesting choice, we wrap up Cora's loyalty mission. Again, not bad, not great, but it does its job of providing further context for our squad mate that helps her character grow. Cora actually learned something from this quest, unlike fucking Liam, who seems to continue to be a fuck up regardless of how you treat him at the end of his loyalty mission. At last there is Vetra and PB. I'm going to do both of their loyalty missions together because I find them equally boring and thus easy to quickly discuss. Vetra is up first. Vetra is already a boring ass character in a ship full of boring ass characters, and her loyalty mission does nothing to change this. The only good thing about her quest is that it leads us to a whole new planet, moon, one that's actually more interesting than the other planets we visit due to its weird gravity that changes gameplay up a little bit. But don't worry, her actual quest won't utilize any of this neat high-flying gravity. No, it's just another closed-room shooter gallery. We're led to a base by Vetra's sister to rescue some people, only for us to learn that these people we're helping were essentially former slavers and that Vetra's sister, Sid, has been helping them escape their past lives and return to the colonies under Vetra's name. It's not really an interesting twist considering we know so little about Vetra and what she actually does through her smuggling contacts, so we the player are just left confused this whole time until Sid reveals herself to be the one behind helping these survivors. Again, it's a straightforward mission. We shoot everything in sight until we get to the end. The only variety being that we have to help Sid, who's helping us hack systems in each room, allowing us to pick various environmental objects to hack that can make our fight easier. The underlying drama of the quest is that Vetra is learning that Sid is no longer a kid and doesn't need constant protecting. This all comes to a head at the very end when the main scavenger boss, who Sid has been undermining, captures her, forcing the player to choose an action. Again, it's a false choice. It doesn't matter what you do, Sid will always survive, and the scavenger boss will always die. Nothing you do matters, and Vetra will love you for saving Sid no matter what you do. Like I said, a boring quest that doesn't really do anything to evolve Vetra or a character or offer interesting gameplay. At the end, Vetra still loves her sister and only learns that maybe she can contribute more than just sitting on the station all day. Boring. PB is last. Similar to Liam, it attempts to be a more lighthearted adventure, but this time fails at every opportunity. I'm just gonna skip over the entire intro where PB suddenly ejects our escape pod to land on the planet with his secret remnant core race because we'd be here all day if I listed all the reasons why it's completely stupid and that Ryder should maybe have shot PB in the head after it. It's simply there as a forced attempt at humor, but unlike Liam's quest, it falls flat. PB's ex-girlfriend is on the planet and seeks the same remnant artifact as her, so it turns into a race as we fight our way through the remnant and her ex's guards to get to the hidden artifact. The gameplay isn't very interesting, though we do get a few puzzles thrown our way. Very exciting. By the very end of the mission, and yes, we're going straight to the end because nothing of importance happens at all in the mission until we get to the end, we corner her ex, who's been trying to kill us the whole mission. Suddenly, her life is put in danger when she tries to retrieve the artifact and she pleads with PB to save her life, stating that she's suddenly very sorry and asks PB to help save her life, sacrificing the ancient mysterious remnant tech. It's at this point the player can either shoot the ex so PB can get the artifact, or let PB rescue her, resulting in the artifact being destroyed. I chose to shoot her the first time through out of nothing more than pure spite, but the decision doesn't really matter at all. PB doesn't get mad at you for murdering someone she once cared about deeply. In fact, she's ready to bone you right after. And if you let her save her ex and cause the artifact to be lost, she doesn't care much either. She's all good with her ex and isn't too concerned that the artifact was lost forever. This ain't exactly an Indiana Jones moment.
I can almost reach it, Dad. Indiana? Indiana? Let it go. Let
Thus ends the final two most boring and most meaningless loyalty quests in the whole game. All in all, as we've seen, they are a mixed bag of genuinely interesting quests, some fun quests, and just downright boring quests. Nothing reaches the high or variety of the actual loyalty missions in Mass Effect 2, but the quests are on par with regular companion quests found in, say, Mass Effect 1 or Dragon Age 2. I know some might find it odd that I'm talking about actual gameplay so late into this video, but that just goes to show you how much emphasis I place on combat when it comes to these types of RPGs, specifically ones with an emphasis on story. Mass Effect 1 arguably has the best story of the series, but I don't think anyone can deny that the combat in that game was a mess. Similarly, The Witcher 3 may be one of the best RPGs in recent memory, but it too is criticized for its lackluster combat and gameplay. Compare The Witcher 3, Skyrim, or the Dragon Age series to something like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Vanquish, or Dragon's Dogma, and we can see a clear difference in terms of where the focus lies in those games. For the most part, Japanese RPGs tend to focus a lot more on making combat feel incredibly rewarding and fluid. Meanwhile, Western RPGs place a greater emphasis on story or role-playing elements. Mass Effect has never been any different, though each entry has improved the combat of the series. That said, I feel that Mass Effect 3 was the absolute peak of the series when it came to combat, whereas Andromeda is either a step backwards or a non-step at best. The most glaring issue with combat, in my opinion, is Andromeda is the lack of punch you feel with any of the weapons. If you're a series vet, then switching to Andromeda is initially jarring, as some of your favorite weapons no longer feel as effective as they were in the past. For example, the Mattock semi-automatic rifle was one of my favorite weapons from the original trilogy. A hard-hitting rifle that fired slower than your typical automatic assault rifle, but made up for it with its increased stopping power. Yet, in Andromeda, it feels and even sounds like a pea shooter. Enemies just soak up damage like bullet sponges, requiring clip after clip of ammunition to be dumped into them. And this is even true with someone that has upgraded their assault rifle and soldier skills to the max level. Guns just don't feel as effective as they did in series past, turning what should be quick and lethal engagements into prolonged affairs as you pump thousands of rounds of ammunition into one enemy. Andromeda's world design also hampers its combat. Because most of these planets are barren landscapes, the majority of the player's fights in the game will take place in areas that have very little cover on totally flat lands. Past series titles were carefully crafted combat areas that allow the player to navigate and manipulate the environment to their advantage. Andromeda's flat, barren plains result in 80% of fights feeling the same, offering very little challenge or variety. Combat only becomes more interesting inside more story-focused missions that can take the player inside actually crafted levels and not barren flat lands. I don't want to say that everything is negative. The inclusion of a jetpack does make combat feel more fluid. The player has never been able to move better than in Mass Effect Andromeda. Jumping on top of ledges, dashing to the side, hovering in the air, all of this feels extremely good and natural. But, as I stated, the lack of punchiness to the weapons seriously hampers this increased range of movement. Of course, this new additional movement comes at the cost of squad control. This removal is truly perplexing to me, as I can't think of any good reason why it was necessary. Control of a squad mate's powers were necessary in past titles to set up combos and prioritize targets. Now, in Andromeda, a player can only direct squad mates to a specific target, but they have no control over that AI's actions. So, if a player is ready to set up a combo, they just have to pray the AI is smart enough to do it, but more often than not, they aren't. Even worse is the new way powers and classes work. What was initially promoted as a new and improved way to experience Mass Effect turned out to be one of the worst additions yet. For starters, classes are now meaningless in Mass Effect. Any player can use any power in the game. All they need to do is invest points in that skill set. I get the logic. They don't want to lock players into a role/class before they get to try them out. But that's the whole fucking point of role-playing. You don't get to be everything. You don't get to be a mage and a rogue and a soldier and a paladin. You have to choose. You have to role-play. If you don't like your class, then start over and choose again. This is, of course, one of Andromeda's big problems. It's afraid to tell the player no. No, you can't have that. No, that choice was wrong. No, this squad mate is a problem and should be kicked off the ship. Everything is a yes. The player gets anything and everything they want, free of any consequence. The reality is this new addition actually hampers the gameplay experience since an individual can now only slot in 3 active powers at a time. That's right, just 3. As opposed to past titles that let you use as many abilities as that specific class had unlocked. In Andromeda, you just get 3. Which means if you want pull, throw, singularity, and a grenade, you can go fuck yourself. Now sure, you can swap your skill set mid-gameplay, but this results in a rather lengthy cooldown. Thus in practicality, this is never useful, as you can't combo within that time frame. So this new expansive system is actually more limiting to the player than ever before. Customization and upgrades are also a hot mess. Squad mates have one outfit, no alternatives, and you can't change them. The player has a handful of armor they can choose from, and I do mean a handful. And of course, you're screwed if you want to change your armor's color and change your weapon or armor loadout at the same time. Though the worst sin is a crafting and upgrade system. You have to research a weapon before you can craft it, and you can only get research points by scanning things instead of, say, breaking down a new weapon you found. Problem is that in addition to multiple upgrade levels, there are also multiple research levels. So if a player wants a level 5 Mattock rifle, they have to research it to level 5, then craft it to level 5, and then if they finally want to equip it, go all the way over to the loadout station on the second level of the ship to finally equip it. Who the hell designed this? Honestly, the faults of the gameplay have all been covered before by plenty of others, so let's just move on. We're coming near the end of this final analysis video, and the part that is more based on my own subjective opinions concerning the game, which is why we're talking about art design so late. As I covered at the start of my last video, I feel that Mass Effect Andromeda strays far too close to the original trilogy, and this extends to the art design. Everything just screams the word safe. You've got the Nexus, which is just a copy of the Citadel. Armor design that's basically tad variations of the iconic N7 armor Shepard wore. Weapons which are, for the most part, the exact same ones we used in the past games, with a few new ones added in that never managed to feel or look quite unique. Safe is a key word when it comes to Andromeda's art design, and I hate it. When the original games came out, Mass Effect had its own unique art style that set it apart from every other sci-fi game, or even general game out there. It truly did feel totally unique, from the designs of the Asari and Turians to the Hanar and Elcor. This naturally extended to environmental and ship design as well. Meanwhile, Andromeda does nothing to grow the series' art design, or attempt to chart its own new course. For me personally, the worst art design aspects of Andromeda concern the Tempest and the Angara. Let's start with the Tempest. First, there is the general look of the Tempest. Yes, it's sleek and shiny and sexy. It's also incredibly safe. It is literally just a Normandy, except even sleeker. So while the general look of the Tempest is, quote, cool, it's completely unoriginal in a game that is supposed to be about exploring a totally new galaxy. Then, there's the general layout. The armor and weapons locker is on the opposite level of where you customize your armor, and separate from where you research and modify your weapons. The Pathfinder's room is a massive suite with a full view into space for some reason, which goes counter to the narrative that humanity and the Milky Way species are struggling to find a new home. If the Pathfinder's job is securing a new home for humanity, why does his room need to be a luxury suite? Wouldn't all that extra space be better utilized for mission purposes? Next up, we have an entire open, and open meaning unsecured, upper level for hollow communications, except for when the writers can't think of a way for the player to communicate with others on the bridge. So our galaxy map screen also serves as a Star Trek communication view screen when the plot demands it. The original Normandy had a separate communications room, totally enclosed so, the commander could take communications privately, such that the crew couldn't hear. Like when a Solarian Dalatras offers us a secret deal. Try doing that in the Tempest. The entire crew can hear your conversation. The original Normandy could only receive audio communications at the galaxy map screen. It didn't turn into a Star Trek view screen so Saren could taunt the player. What else? Let's see. The Tempest has 0 weapons, which makes no sense. Yes, I get it. The initiative is supposed to be about peaceful exploration.
I chose each of you for the Pathfinder team, not just because you're talented and passionate, but because you're dreamers, like me.
Holy shit! What was first contact protocol again?
No deadly force unless fired upon.
Yeah, said no one in the field ever. How do we handle it?
Which of course is a lie, since we packed a fuck ton of small arms weapons with us, and everyone is immediately okay with murdering the Ket on first contact. But even ignoring all that and accepting the general premise that the initiative is about exploration, Starfleet in Star Trek was also about peaceful exploration. They are specifically not a military organization, yet they also know that they need the ability to defend themselves, which is why all Starfleet ships come packed with a full assortment of phaser arrays and photon torpedoes. Yet, none of the initiative ships are armed with ship-to-ship weapons. This is extra stupid, considering the actual leaders of the initiative knew about the Reaper threat, and that the initiative might very well be the last of all the Milky Way species, assuming they made the journey to Andromeda. As a result, you think the primary concern would be ensuring a way the last of your species could defend themselves from whatever they might encounter in a new galaxy. But nope. The Tempest has no weapons, the Hyperion has no weapons, the Nexus has no weapons, Angara shuttles don't come equipped with weapons either? Weird. Speaking of the Angara, let's just briefly rehash that point. Their design, along with the Ket, are also just boring and safe. Two humanoid species with 2 eyes, 2 arms, hands, feet, toes, and fingers. And of course, their design aesthetics are complementary to everything that existed in the Milky Way galaxy. Nothing really creative or weird about them. Meanwhile, the original trilogy was hitting us with species like the Hanar and Elcor right out of the gate, in addition to more humanoid species like the Turians. Lazy, safe art design. I hate it. Finally, let's talk about the soundtrack, or rather the lack thereof. Andromeda has the worst soundtrack of the series, in a series known for its amazing score that really helped drive the emotions and themes of a scene. Andromeda goes for a more minimalistic approach. Most of your time exploring will be spent with barely any music playing in the background, and when it is there, it's barely noticeable, blending in with the background. And while it's not that the team decided to try something different somewhere, I don't think this is what many people had in mind for a Mass Effect soundtrack. In fact, I doubt it was a risk at all, and more likely they just ran out of time for the game to be properly scored. I mean, for fuck's sakes, the game only seems to be able to play the main menu theme for every cinematic moment of the game. I'll just let the music speak for itself in this segment. And now we finally come to the end. I've picked apart just about every aspect of this game that I personally care about. I could talk about the multiplayer and how it manages to not only fail to evolve Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, despite the 5-year gap in between games, and yet somehow manages to be worse than Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, but I don't care. I don't play Mass Effect for multiplayer. At the end, we can see the clear problems with Mass Effect Andromeda. A shoddy story told with an inconsistent tone, themes that don't support the realities of gameplay, and boring, unimaginative characters. A world design that is barren and underinteresting, offering very little for the player to discover or explore, and a lack of real ethical or moral conflicts with which the player can explore, resulting in a safe space odyssey. These are the real problems with Mass Effect Andromeda, not the poor animations and certainly not those nebulous, scary SJWs. Instead, the product we received was born out of a development studio that simply wasn't ready for AAA development. Through infighting and numerous departures within the studio, Andromeda was patched together by senior BioWare officials swooping down to push out some form of a game after years of wasted development time by BioWare Montreal. And it's a testament to these individuals that Andromeda turned out to be anything even approaching average and not a completely broken mess of a game. I don't know what's in store for the future of the series, but there are positive signs on the horizon. Casey Hudson is back where he belongs, leading all of BioWare, and is more than receptive to having another Mass Effect game developed. Only time will tell how long we have to wait again before we see another Mass Effect warping in from the distance. Whether that next game will be set in the Andromeda Galaxy or the Milky Way, who knows. I just hope that whatever comes next, the game is developed by BioWare proper and not handled by some inexperienced new studio. With this video over, I just want to take the time to thank everyone for being so patient. I had planned this video to be out much sooner, but real life problems and the length and complexity of this final video required extra time. In the end, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and even still, I could still complain more about this game. But I think a 2-hour rant is more than enough. Of course, if you liked the video, maybe give it a like or whatever, or maybe check out one of my other videos. I can't say when my next video will be out, but I do know what the topic will be, which this time will instead be praising another more recent sci-fi game to come out. So, stay tuned. Anyway, thanks for watching and peace out.
Good Varen. Here, try this.
Looks like Ur's finally found someone to follow around.
Oh no, we'd never give him away. But we're moving to another country where dogs are forbidden. Hear what? Oh, sure. Come here, boy. Put that prowler down. Come here. Come on, boy. Say it, boy. Say I love you for the nice man. I love you. Good dog. Good doggy. Isn't that amazing? See you soon. Woohoo!